Is saturated fat bad for you? Saturated fat often gets a bad reputation, but let's take a closer look at what it really means for our health. Saturated fat is a type of dietary fat found in foods like butter, cheese, red meat, and certain oils like palm and coconut. Traditionally, it has been viewed as unhealthy because it can raise low-density lipoprotein cholesterol, often referred to as bad cholesterol. This increase in cholesterol can be linked to a higher risk of heart disease and stroke. When we consume too much saturated fat, it can lead to a buildup of cholesterol in our arteries. This buildup can potentially cause heart problems over time. Additionally, foods high in saturated fat can be calorie-dense, which may contribute to weight gain and related health issues like diabetes and cardiovascular disease. However, recent research has started to paint a more complicated picture. Some large reviews and clinical trials show that while reducing saturated fat intake can lower blood cholesterol, it does not always lead to a reduced risk of heart attacks or death from cardiovascular disease. In fact, some observational studies suggest that saturated fat intake may not be linked to an increased risk of heart disease and might even be associated with a lower risk of stroke. The source of saturated fat plays a significant role in its health impact. For example, dairy products that are high in saturated fat often show neutral or even protective effects on heart health. On the other hand, processed meats may carry a different risk profile. When we think about health and healing foods, it is essential to focus on whole, minimally processed foods and the overall dietary pattern rather than just isolated nutrients. The MIND diet, which stands for Mediterranean-Intervention for Neurodegenerative Delay, emphasizes plant-based foods, healthy fats, and limits saturated fat primarily from processed and red meats. This diet aims to support both brain and cardiovascular health. Practical tips for managing saturated fat intake include choosing sources of fat carefully. Favor unsaturated fats from nuts, seeds, fish, and olive oil. It is wise to moderate saturated fat intake, especially from processed foods and high-fat animal products. Instead, opt for whole food sources like dairy and lean meats. In essence, saturated fat is not inherently bad for you. However, excessive consumption, particularly from processed and high-fat animal products, can raise health risks. The quality and source of saturated fat, along with your overall dietary pattern, are key factors in determining its effects on heart and brain health. A balanced, nutrient-rich diet can support healing and long-term wellness.